Second American Revolution is about to begin with terrorist organizations such as Black Lives Matter and Antifa, which are both oxymorons. Open declarations by these scumbags say that they're planning to attack voters at the polling sites, and this cannot stand in America. These soy boy leftist retards are invoking social Darwinism on themselves because patriots are going to the polls armed. Any attacks on voters will be quickly put down, permanently. The following video is posted here and on all my social media channels because the techno-Nazis are bound to censor it. In the censorship game of free speech whack-a-mole, patriots must supply an infinite stream of moles that, by virtue of their being seen by some before getting whacked, will validate that the mole is the truth, which the enemies of freedom do not want you to see. Please share this video with all your contacts and subscribe to Josh Bernstein and Millenial Millie. The links are below in the description section. The following video is reposted on all my social media channels as a public service and in defiance of big tech, deep state censorship. You can do your part to defeat the Orwellian Nazi cabal by sharing and reposting this video on your channel.
He's been called a racist by the party who founded the KKK. He's been called a terrorist for telling the truth. And now he's been labeled a contagion. Well, they're right about one thing. If spreading liberty and justice throughout the world is a crime, he's guilty, as charged. Here is your favorite bald badass, Josh Bernstein.
Welcome to another hard-hitting edition of the Josh Bernstein Show. The Josh Bernstein Show starts where the rest of the media ends. On today's program, man, I am going to unload some content on you folks. Are you ready for this? In segment one, we're going to talk about what the left has planned for the election. It is not good. That I can tell you, number one. Number two, I'm going to tell you to be armed when you go to the polling stations, believe it or not. And more importantly, how they can win this election if Republicans do not do one thing. You don't want to miss that. And then in segment number two, you know, the left loves to say that there's no such thing as voter fraud. Oh, it's just a right-wing talking point. Really? Well, I put together a video for all of you that you can share with any liberal that you know, or even independent, or anyone on the fence that says that there's no problem with mail-in voting and absentee ballots and election fraud. Okay? You're going to have all the proof in one video. And then, you know, the only thing I can say is that we are financing our demise from the comfort of our own living rooms. You don't want to miss that report as well. And then in the fourth one, you know, the Portland protesters, there's a lot of people talking about the fact that many of them arrested may have been teachers. Well, I don't know if that's 100% the case right now, but I can assure you that teachers absolutely support Antifa, and not just Antifa, but the National Education Association supports Antifa and pedophiles. You don't want to miss that segment either. And then in the last segment, you know, I'm going to end the week with good news as I always do. Lots of arrests, folks. Lots of arrests to talk about when it comes to these protesters and looters and rioters. Barr is not just sitting on his hands. He may be with the deep state so far, but he's certainly not when it comes to the arrests that are happening at a pretty fast pace. So by the time I get to that segment, which would be Sunday morning, who knows what that number will be. But I will cover all of that as well. Now, let's get into segment number one. So here we are in 2020. This is America in 2020. You're walking down the street. You're minding your own business. Maybe you're with a friend. Maybe you're with your girlfriend. Maybe you're with your boyfriend. Maybe you're with your husband, your wife, whatever, your kids. It doesn't matter. You're walking around. You're having a good time. Somebody comes up to you They have a medical mask on because now it's, pretty much everybody's got them on. They've got a gun or a knife or a weapon, and they literally rob you on the spot. Okay? And once they're done, if they don't kill you, bye-bye. They just walk away. They just leave. They know there's no consequences anymore because many police departments are being defunded. So what do you have? What's your recourse at this point? Excuse me, at this point. Can you even call the police? They're not going to do anything. In fact, not only are they not going to do anything, they're actually telling you now to obey. That's right. Look at this image right here. This is from the Minneapolis Police Department. They are basically saying right here that be prepared to give up your cell phone and your wallet. Do as they say. Don't fight back. And don't call us because, we're just not going to come because we've been defunded. The Seattle Police Department, the Minneapolis Police Departments, soon to be Portland, and who knows how many more. It's pretty scary. It is absolutely frightening. And is this the society that we want to live in? Is this the society that we want to leave to our children? Do we want to be unsafe in these neighborhoods? Well, unfortunately, and apparently, these people do. Go ahead and roll this absolutely frightening clip.
This is really the moment that this broken system could all come crumbling down, but it's up to us to take action and make it happen. We have to bring the crisis to their doorsteps. And we're going to mobilize outside the homes of politicians in the middle of the night to wake them up. That's right, y'all. No justice, no sleep. And this isn't just your regular protest. This is a daily haunting to make it clear that our generation is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to the revolution in the streets and at the ballot box.
My dream is that we bring these failed and corrupt institutions to their knees and we build something new. I love the term siege because I feel like that's exactly what we're going to do. And I'll encourage you to go read the Wikipedia page for what a siege is, because have that expectation. We need to tell the world that we're not taking this bullshit anymore, that they will see us, they will feel us, and they will hear us until they are deaf with our demands. Rome was not built in a day, and it was also not sieged in a day. In fact, it was sieged over the course of 1 year and 9 days, which was a fact I learned today. Every single day from now until the election is a day we're preparing for ballot time battle and the post-election eruption of our pent-up anger. That means showing up to houses of politicians everywhere who have failed us.
So for the next 100 days, we will haunt these architects of the death economy. We will march into their homes. We will march into their homes. We will march into their homes and make it plain and simple for them.
They are using an example of a pro-abolitionist group from the 1860s called the Wide Awakes. If you go back and read about the tactics used by the Wide Awakes, they were a group that would use hammers to smash windows, break stuff, and beat people. On election day, Wide Awakes monitored voting lines, challenged suspicious voters, and checked to see that ballots were genuine before they were cast. A nationwide campaign of harassment, violence, and intimidation is now underway. The Sunrise Movement, March for Our Lives, United We Dream, and Black Lives Matter are the main groups organizing this uprising. You saw what they did to the cities. Well, now they're planning to target American citizens at their homes. Quote, "We need to prepare for the new terrain. Cops enforcing domestic property disturbances more aggressively than police office sit-ins, and brutality by federal officers in cities across the country. They plan to use children on the front lines, forcing law enforcement to engage with minors. Youthful rioters will aggressively go to prominent outspoken conservatives and politicians' homes to, quote, show them who really has the power. The mission is to disrupt their private life and well-being by shouting, bullhorning, and banging to keep them in a state of continued anxiety."
You're outside your home?
Remember, this is the same group of people that said burning down buildings is a legitimate form of protest. Well, do they feel the same about burning down homes?
Actions like burning buildings are legitimate and powerful forms of resistance.
So we should expect the same thing that's been happening in Portland to start happening now on the doorsteps of prominent conservatives and Republicans. The protest at Mitch McConnell's home was a Juneteenth beta test. They also say that they need a president whose strings they can pull, and that Biden is their guy.
Despite the potential for change that's coming, we still have to deal with Biden, right? And I know literally every time I open the news, he's gone and said something else terrible. The Democratic Party is banging us over the head with, we got to defeat Trump. And this really speaks to me, right? We need an administration we can control. We need to be able to pull the strings if we want to be able to implement the visionary future we need.
After they get Biden elected through street tactics, they will overtake his administration.
So now we're going to take actions they cannot ignore.
On Election Day, they plan to take civil unrest to voting polls in suburban and Republican areas. They will be targeting Trump's poll watchers. The claim that they are agents of intimidation to keep Black and brown people from voting.
So as we ramp up to the election, we know there's a lot that's going to be stopping Black and brown people and young people from voting. Polling places are being shut down, and we've heard that Trump has called for 50K poll watchers, which we all know that means there's going to be an army of terrorizers to scare Black and brown people from voting. It's going to be rough.
So they claim they are going to be protesting at the polls to help protect brown and Black people. But minorities have had open access to voting booths just like everyone else. The real goal is to scare and intimidate conservative voters away by having these violent groups present at the polls.
That's why we need to show up like never before.
You really think they aren't going to physically attack Trump voters given the opportunity?
It's time to win some. So after showing our power on Election Day, we'll actually start to dictate how we rebuild society. We young people, we really need to get out there and fight like our lives depend on it, because it really does, y'all.
The revolution is here, y'all. It is outside our doorsteps, and it's up to each and every one of us to decide who we are. Are we the vanguards of this revolution? Are we wide awake on this call and ready to bring the revolution to the doorsteps of our leaders from dawn until dusk? I think we are.
Looks like George Soros is down for another round of happy making, and he will send his goons after you if necessary.
First and foremost, I want to say great job to Millenial Millie for doing the hard work and the investigative reporting on that. She did a fantastic job. So there you have it, folks. I mean, right there from the filthy America-hating mouths of these dirtbags, these Antifa radicals and communists that want to destroy this country. They're talking about no sleep. They're talking about coming to people's homes in the suburbs. You know, it's one thing when they were in the cities that were run by the liberals and the leftists, but now they want to come into the suburbs. Well, how are we going to greet them when they come into the suburbs? Let's hope that we greet them with a resistance that they've never seen before. And I mean with exercising your Second Amendment rights. Make sure they're not coming anywhere near your property, okay? We may have a whole bunch of these McCloskeys happening from now till Election Day. And you know what? If it happens, some of these people are going to get shot and maybe even killed. And I'm not talking about the people defending their homes either. So number one, every single Trump voter should show up at the polls armed. No, Josh, you didn't just say that, did you? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. You should have, if you have a concealed carry permit, you should have it. If you are someone who is elderly, perhaps you bring your son or your daughter with them. If you have, a pepper spray or a knife or anything, I suggest you have it with you. I also suggest you go to the polls in teams to make it safer. Okay? That's another thing. And, the bottom line here is that we've got to protect ourselves and our right to not be intimidated and to be able to vote in this election. Number two, I'm calling on the Bikers for Trump organization and groups, as far as ex-military members, 3%ers, militias. I mean, in the video, they said that there's going to be 50,000 poll watchers. Sorry, that's not enough. And by the way, those poll watchers, mostly that are going to be supplied by the campaign, who knows? They're probably certainly not going to have any arresting power. They're not going to be officers of the law. And all they're going to be doing is going, oh, look, that person's cheating. Well, that's not stopping the result of the fraud, okay? So as we had in the 2016 election, when the Bikers for Trump were in full gear out there, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them in different polling stations, we need you guys again. And if you need help in organizing or anything like that, feel free to send me an email at thejoshbernsteinshow@gmail.com. And again, if you thought that the Billy Clubbed Black Panther Party were intimidating people in Obama's elections, man, you haven't seen anything yet, okay? These folks want to keep you from voting. Imagine that. They're saying it in the video. Clearly, you can hear it. They are agitators. They are communists. They are angry. They want to revolutionize this country into worse than Venezuela. And we cannot sit back and allow that to happen. Okay? Now, number three, in cities that have these defund the police movements, we need to organize a vigilante police force. That's right. I am calling for that to protect the citizens of those areas. When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes duty. Okay? Now, the next one is, we are in a war, and I don't think so many conservatives understand that. Yes, we see the defund the police movement. Yes, we see the violence. We see the rioting and the Molotov cocktails and the, attacks against police and all these things. But are we just taking that as a small sample of America right now? Or are we looking at the big picture? And we have to look at the big picture. These people are in war against us. Whether we know it or not, we are in another civil war, okay? We didn't start this war. We didn't want this war, but we damn well will finish it. That's for sure, okay? Now, along with these intimidation tactics that no doubt they are going to try to suppress conservative Republican voters at the polling precincts, especially in more conservative areas and suburban areas around the country, they're also working with this pandemic to scare people, older people in particular, from going to the polls. And unfortunately, this is working, and I have proof of it. One of the things that I do during the day is I do lots of interviews on radio and television, and I've been doing that for years. Well, recently, I did an interview. I'm not going to say the station, and I'm not going to point out to the people who it was, but I did an interview, and in the interview, we were taking calls. And this, unfortunately, is what this lady said. Go ahead and roll this clip.
I only did it once before after Hurricane Katrina because I had to. And it's not the way I want to do it. I prefer to go in. I prefer to press the button and do it that way. But I do not want to go into the school. There's people over there right now. There were people there yesterday, cars on the street and in the parking lot. And I'm asking myself, are they wearing masks? But then, of course, if you have a mask on your mouth, you can't, how are you going to talk and everything? I don't know what's going on in there. I'm assuming they're getting ready for the opening of the school, and I'm not going to feel comfortable going in that building to vote. So I may have to go ahead and do the mail-in.
Now, the sad part is that many of these older Americans that maybe would have come to the polls are now planning, because of the COVID thing and now the intimidation, but mainly because of COVID, because they're afraid that they're going to stay home or worse, mail in their votes. And as I say, if you mail in your votes, there's a very good likelihood that it'll never count. Okay? That's the unfortunate truth here. So, instead of mailing in their ballots, they need to go to the polling stations. Because if people do not go to the polling stations, I can almost assure you President Trump is going to lose this election. I don't care how excited people are to vote for the president. I don't care about the enthusiasm gap being in his favor. If people are scared, whether for the reasons of intimidation or this pandemic, to go to the polling stations, we're not going to win. I mean, we're not going to win. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, folks. This is the reality that we face, okay? So this is why President Trump must pass an immediate executive order banning the printing of the party affiliation on the outside of the mail-in ballot. How this can even be legal in any state is beyond me. When you go into the polling stations, what do? They hand you a ballot, they give you a marker, and then you stand in an area, and there's a little barrier around you. Why? For privacy, so they can't see who you're voting for. But yet, we can mail a ballot in with an R on the outside of the envelope. Oh yeah, like that's not going to be tampered with. Sure. You know, I'm going to end this segment with something that some of you may not like. As a matter of fact, some of you might even think that I'm mean-spirited. Maybe I don't care about people. But the bottom line is, I don't care if I hurt people's feelings, okay? I'm not going to apologize. And if you're offended, well, that's just too bad, okay? I'm here to give you the truth. Whether you like it or not and how much it hurts, it doesn't matter to me. Because my entire show is about one thing, being truthful. So in every single generation, from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to World War I to World War II to the Korean War to the Vietnam War to the war in Iraq to the war in Afghanistan, Americans have sacrificed. They have sacrificed their health. They've sacrificed their limbs. They have sacrificed, in many cases, their lives to protect freedom and liberty for all of us. Okay? Now, I'm not asking people to storm a beach or try to retake a hill. I'm asking you to do one thing, and that is to vote in public, not from the mail, vote in person at the polling booths and stations on Election Day or within a few days of Election Day. We have got to completely engulf, bombard, whatever word you want to use, the polling stations within the last 72 hours to make sure that we win this election and that it's not close to where lawyers get involved and all this other BS, okay? It is that important. Now, here's what I'm going to say. The bottom line, folks, is this, okay? If you can go to your local grocery store, or you can go out to the bank, or you could go out to, a clothing store or the mall or wherever it is you might go and put a mask on, then damn it, you can stand in line, whether with a mask on or not, I don't care. You can stand in line and you can vote in person. Now, some of you may get sick. It's certainly a possibility. And unfortunately, yes, some may even die, okay? So be it. What is your sacrifice to this country? Your sacrifice is the fact that knowing that if, God forbid, that happened to you, you are protecting freedom. You are preserving liberty and prosperity for your children and your grandchildren. You are fighting the good fight. You are giving back to your country. We can't do this without the 60 to 65 plus community. We can't win this election if they're afraid to go and vote in public. All right? So again, this is what we're saying here. This is what I'm saying here. I'm asking you not to storm the beaches of Normandy here or fight in a war. But yes, we are in a war. We're in a war to save this country, and we need all hands on deck. And that means those that are older Americans, you must vote at the polls. Please do not mail this in. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Dave from Net4Truth USA, Inglorious Patriots. It is August 4th, 2020, and the time now is 11:30 hours Eastern Standard Time in Northeast West Bumblefuck. I've been saying what you have just seen for years. I say it with great trepidation because I had never envisioned my country degenerating to such a state where young people are totally brainwashed. And that leaves out the majority of the demographics of this channel. We are in a war. Whether you want to believe it or not doesn't change the facts. These people are serious, and they work in groups because by themselves they are just pussy soy boys who would get their asses whooped by a 90-year-old woman. They're coming to the polls to stop us from taking our country back. This election will determine whether or not the planet turns into a prison planet or the U.S. Constitution is propagated to the rest of the world. We have to insist on the Exodus 20 plan, the reinstitution of the Mosaic law, instead of what is in place right now. And what's in place right now is a two-tier justice system where judges, prosecutors, law enforcement, and people in government are immune from prosecution and immune from lawsuits for the crimes they commit against law-abiding citizens. This happens to a lot of people, myself included. And when you get in their way, you feel their wrath. And if you give up, you might as well be dead. Because life is not worth living if you're not free. And we've lived under the illusion of freedom for a very, very long time. And the last 3.5 years, with all the opposition that Donald Trump, God bless his soul, has run up against, we've just tasted a small bit of what could be if the government wasn't so corrupt. Draining the swamp means destroying the swamp. We can't leave one of these cockroaches left running around. And the biggest cockroach that I see is that testicle-faced motherfucker named George Soros, who participated in World War II against persecuting and robbing his own people. That is, by his own admission, he's glad he did it. He would do it again. And Hungary has a death warrant out for him. Why don't they just rendition him to Hungary? Snatch him up, put him on a plane, and land him over there on the tarmac, and take Hillary Clinton and put her down in the tarmac in Port-au-Prince. And we see these facades of organizations. Antifa, anti-fascists. I'm the anti-fascist. My father was an anti-fascist. These people are fascists, pretending to be anti-fascists, projecting their crimes onto their opposition, because they know if Donald Trump wins this next election, it's all over for them. Black Lives Matter. If Black Lives Matter, why aren't you going after Hillary Clinton, who stole $11 billion, and that's a ballpark estimate, from the people in Haiti who were still suffering from a 2011 earthquake? Why don't you go after her? And Laura Silsby, who now works for the people who do the Amber Alerts, who got caught, convicted, and jailed for trying to smuggle 33 children who still had parents out of Haiti for their child trafficking operation. Why don't you go after them if Black lives really matter? The only name of that organization, the only reason that organization has that name is because they can say that anybody who's against them is racist. That's their only weapon, calling you a racist, a fascist, a homophobe, a xenophobe. I tell you what, I'm a communistophobe. I'm a pedovorophobe. Not that I'm scared of them. I just don't want to have nothing to do with them. And if they cross my path, they're going to find out what military training in Vietnam was all about. Like I said before in my previous videos, I'm a match shooter and I don't miss, and I don't believe in center mass hold. It's a sad day in America when people have to go to a voting place armed to not be accosted by some scumbags who really belong in Leavenworth. It's a sad day, but we have to win this election by any means necessary. And if it means packing heat to go vote, so be it. So be it. If you attack me, it'll be the last person you ever attack. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. And if you stop me, or try to stop me from voting, the same fate awaits you. There's only one way to handle terrorists. And I've said that many times before. Sad day in America that some people of our age have to fight the battle that was supposedly won in World War II. Because make no mistake about this, folks, these people are fascists. They're a combination of Nazis and communists. They want to take over the country. In fact, the demon rats sold California. That's why they set it on fire with directed energy weapons that melted the wheels off a car and left the tree next to it unscathed. That's why they unleashed all this homelessness and all these Mexicans and everybody coming up from the southern border shitting in the street. Why don't you build a trebuchet and launch 200-pound bags of human poop onto Nancy Pelosi's house? Maybe she'll get the message. Huh? Why don't you do that? Why don't you put your efforts into learning your history instead of listening to CNN and mainstream media bullshit propaganda, and grow a pair? Stand up for your country. Because the people who are paying you to do this shit, the next thing you know, they're coming after you. That's a fact. This is Dave from Net4Truth USA, Inglorious Patriots. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our backup channels on YouTube, Inglorious Patriots, Net4Truth USA 2 Patriot Channel, and Ethernet Warriors. You can also catch us on BitChute.com/Net4Truth USA, remonetized.org/user/Inglorious-Patriots9, and drop.space/@Net4Truth USA. All the links are in the description. We fly so close to the target, we are on our 5th fighter jet. We will be relentless and persistent until the enemies of freedom are defeated. You can support this channel by using the links in the description, but for a $100 donation, I will personally send you a autographed hardcover special edition copy of Land of Childhood's Fears. Also, visit my bookstore at lulu.com/Net4Truth USA. If you are viewing this video on BitChute, you can use the links in the description to support us, or simply click the green $ dot on our video to support this channel. Thank you. Links are in the description section.